So if you find this sleep story helpful or interesting, then give it a thumbs up, leave any comments that you've got below, and if you aren't already, subscribe to the channel and click the bell icon so you can receive notifications of when future sleep stories go live. I have dozens and dozens of stories already on my channel that you can go and search. I also release new stories every single week, so I hope you enjoy this story. So just take a moment to allow your eyes to close and allow yourself to begin to relax. And as you begin to relax, so I'm just going to tell this sleep meditation in the background. And I don't know whether you'll drift asleep faster to the sound of my voice or whether it'll be to the spaces between my words. And as you continue to drift asleep, you can listen along to this meditation in the background. And it's a meditation about a couple who are celebrating their 25-year wedding anniversary. And as a celebration, they'd always wanted to go on a train journey. The train journey takes them through mountains. It takes them through long, open plains. And it takes them all the way to a distant coast. They've always wanted to make this long train journey. And the train that the journey is on is a special train. It's one of the rare times that a steam train makes this journey. And so for the journey they can hear the ch-ch-ch-ch of the steam train. They can hear the whistle as the steam train heads into tunnels, cutting through mountains. As the steam train passes by different spaces and stations, they can smell that smoke as it pumps along the side of the carriages. And the carriages are done up nicely with lace net curtains over the windows, with a table between the seats where they can enjoy fine dining. And those making this journey get their own section of carriage to sleep in, like their own little compartment. And this couple set off from an ordinary station and have a sense of excitement, of wonder of what the journey is going to entail. And as that train gets going, so they look out the window and they can see the landscape changing. They can see distant mountains getting closer and closer, feeling the rocking of that train on the track as it accelerates. They sit and drink a cup of tea with each other, sharing that experience. And as they begin to head to the mountains, so that train begins to ascend and pass through tunnels through the mountains, those tunnels getting longer and longer. And they can look down over grasslands and meadows. They can see deer and other animals down there. They can see bird of prey flying in the sky, hovering overhead. Noticing the way the sun glistens on the snowy mountains and shimmers on the grass in the fields. And this journey doesn't pull into very many stations. Most of it is travelling through scenery, just enjoying the views, with set meals at certain times. And by the end of the first day, as the sun is setting, so that train is now travelling around the outsides of a large mountain range. As they look out the window, they can see the sunset in one direction and the twinkling stars appearing in the other direction. As they continue to head towards those twinkling stars, so the sun sinks further behind the horizon. And after a while, they decide to settle down for the night. And so they head back to their cabin. They snuggle up in the bed, and in a loving embrace, they drift and float asleep. And while they drift asleep, one of them begins to dream. He dreams about his wedding day, dreams about looking out over the wedding venue, seeing all of his friends and family, seeing all of his partner's friends and family. And then that emotional moment where he sees his partner walking down the aisle, his dad walking along with him, walking him to the front, standing side by side, and having that moment where it's almost like no one else was there but the two of them, as they looked into each other's eyes and spoke about devoting their lives to each other. And he was dreaming about how now, 25 years later, he's still as devoted to his husband as he was back then, and that they're on this long train journey, this dream journey. They've saved every year. They've saved a little every year, with the dream that on their 25th anniversary they'll be able to have afforded to make this journey. And as he's dreaming that, so he wakes up just ever so slightly, hugs his husband tighter, snuggles up a little bit more, feels the warmth of his body, notices his husband just grab hold of his hand slightly while being hugged, and then drifts comfortably and deeply asleep. And the next morning they awaken. They take a look at where they're at now. They can see that they've moved well on through the night, that they're now out into a more hilly area just at the edge of the mountain range, where everything outside the windows is greener, where if they look back towards the mountains they can see the white tops of those mountains, but generally everything's greener and lush, that there appears to be a lot of water around here, probably rains a lot. And they head through to the main carriage. They have themselves some breakfast. They talk about how well they slept, the pleasant dreams that they'd had. They wished each other a happy anniversary. They looked forward to the rest of this day. And the train was due to stop at a station later on in the day. And while the train is stopped and being restocked with food and refueled and having more water put on the train, they get a chance to go and stretch their legs and explore. And the train will be in the station for 6 hours before they continue their journey. And after a while the train arrives at the station, pulls into that station, and the couple get off the train, stretch their legs on the platform, feeling the warmth of the air here, surprised how warm it is, when just 5 or 6 hours earlier they could see mountains. And as they go and explore the surrounding area, they walk into an area of tall grass. And while they're walking through this area of tall grass, they suddenly hear this loud boom, followed by a second boom. And they have this sense that they just saw something like a flash of light across the sky. And then they feel a shock wave push them back onto the grass. And they can see that wave travel across the grass and travel through the trees. And as they sit up in the grass, they look around themselves to try and see what it was. And they notice this silver object hovering in the distance. And then in a blink of an eye, it appeared somewhere else, having disappeared where it was. And in a blink of an eye, it was somewhere else. And then in another blink of an eye, it was virtually over the top of them, lowering itself down into the tall grass. And they were surprised at how silent this giant silver object was as it settled down into that grass. And they watched as the side of it opened, and out walked some short and thin aliens that were barely taller than the grass. They watched as those aliens walked out into the grass, seemed to be looking at objects in their hands. And they explored the grass, seeming to scan the surroundings, before getting back on to that ship, door closing behind them. And in a blink, that ship shot off again. And they didn't know what to think about this. The couple was silent for a while, not looking at each other, not talking to each other, just staring at the location of what they had just seen. And then after a little while, they turned to each other and they began talking about how incredible that was, how no one would believe them, how they never managed to get a camera out or get their mobile phones out to take any photos. They were so shocked and stunned, they couldn't move. They just watched. And then one of them noticed that about 4 hours had passed, and that somehow time had disappeared. It didn't feel like more than a couple of seconds when those aliens came out of the ship, scanned and looked around, got back on the ship and left. And yet they could see on their watches that 4 hours had passed, and they had to rush to get back to their train. So they rushed back to their train, boarded that train, and as the train set off, continued that journey, they talked about this alien encounter. They tried to wonder where the 4 hours went, how that time could have disappeared. And one of them said that they would try hypnosis, see if they can use hypnosis to uncover what happened during that period of time. And so one of them leant over, lifted up their partner's arm, started touching gently on that arm, told their partner to gaze at the back of their hand. And as you gaze at the back of your hand, I'm going to just tap gently on the arm. And as I do, that arm can just float there, relaxed in space. And while that arm relaxes and floats in space, you can drift deeper and more comfortably into the experience. But don't let that arm begin to lower down any faster. Then you drift back to that moment in the field. You drift back to that moment in the tall grass. And as the arm began to lower down, so they began to drift back in their mind to that moment in the tall grass. As their arm reached the table and relaxed down, they were asked, "So where are you?" "I'm in the tall grass," they responded. "When are you at?" "We've just arrived in the tall grass. We've just heard the loud booms. We've just watched that craft dart unimaginably fast from place to place, and now it's landing in front of us. And tell me, slowly and gently, what happens next?" The aliens have come out of their craft. They're scanning around. A purple pulse of light has come from the scanner they're using and passed us by. And my eyes flicker slightly as that purple pulse of light reaches me. And I'm walking towards the aliens, and you're walking along with me. And the aliens are watching us head to them. And the aliens guide us onto the ship. And I can see the inside of the ship. And the aliens scan us with different items. And they measure us. They seem to weigh us. They take a close look at us. They wipe something on our skin, as if to be gathering a bit of our dead skin. And they're doing this just slowly, gently. They seem to be so calm and relaxed around us. And we stood there so calmly, so relaxed. And now they're showing us off the craft. They're showing us back out to where we were in the grass. And I can see a slight hazy purple outline in the two locations that we were in the grass. And those aliens seemed to put us back just into those purple outlines. And then they head back to their place. And they press a button and that purple light begins to fade. And just as the purple light fades back to their scanners, they press a button on the scanner. And then they turn and they head back into the craft and it shoots off. And the person realizes that more happened in that time that felt like a few seconds than they'd realized. And they brought their partner out of hypnosis. And the partner and themselves talked about that experience. The partner now with a memory of the whole experience. Shared what had happened, being inquisitive about what they might have been after, fascinated and excited by the experience they had just had, and so fascinated and so excited that much of the rest of the day's journey was missed through them talking to each other about encountering aliens. And as they went to bed that night, they settled down, fell asleep, slept incredibly well, knowing that this is the best 25-year anniversary present that you could possibly have. Not only getting this train trip they'd saved 25 years for, but also meeting aliens and having an encounter that very few others will have had, and knowing that this is something that your partner knows, and so you can share this with each other, and you know that you believe each other, that you've got this shared experience, but knowing that it's something that'll be just your experience, no one else would believe you. And so you've always got this experience that's just yours, that's private to the two of them. And the next day they continue on their journey. And the train stops again for another 6-hour stopover. And they head out into a sparse, open space. They can see deer in the distance. They take some photos. They have this feeling almost like they're on a safari, taking photos of deer, taking photos of wild horses, taking photos of bird of prey circling overhead. Before boarding the train again for the last leg. And the train travels along, they sleep overnight, one more night. The next day arriving at the coast. And as they arrive at the coast, then they disembark the train, they head to their luxury hotel they've booked as part of this journey. And they'll be following that train journey back the next day. And they enjoy their time in the hotel. They enjoy going and exploring this town. They enjoy a walk along the seafront at night, seeing the moon over the sea, the way it glistens and sparkles almost magically on the tips of the waves. and listening to those waves lapping onto the shore, before heading back to the hotel, settling down for the night, knowing they've got their journey home to look forward to. And the next day they wake up and they set off on their journey home. They enjoy their journey back, stopping at those same places on the way home. Only this time they had no alien encounter. And the timings were slightly different, and so this time they got to enjoy more of the mountains. They got to enjoy more of the bits that they passed through at night time before, that this time they were passing through at daytime. And at the end of their journey, they made their way back home. They relaxed down. They looked at the photographs they'd taken. They laughed. They reminisced. They hugged while watching video clips and photos. And they celebrated their 25-year anniversary and said they look forward to 25 more years and seeing what they get up to on their 50th anniversary. And that night they went to bed, settled down in bed, and drifted and floated so peacefully and comfortably asleep, having had the experience of a lifetime. And while dreaming and relaxing about that experience and all that it entailed, they drifted and floated so deeply asleep, knowing that that experience and the peace and calm that it's brought and the feelings of love will seep into each coming day, bringing a smile to their face as they go about their daily business. And they drift and float so peacefully and comfortably asleep.